Our guest is James W. Nemitz. He is a PhD. He is the 7th president of the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine and has been with this school over 30 years in different positions. He also serves the osteopathic profession nationally through various boards and committees with the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine. Welcome to Vital Signs, Jim.
Dr. Rashid, it's an honor to be on your show.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And our topic is the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. And I want to show you the picture, and Doctor is going to tell us about how the school began. Can we have the pictures of the founders? That is a picture of the school. Where is the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine?
Well, the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine is, its main campus is in Lewisburg, West Virginia and Greenbrier County. But we actually have a statewide campus where we're in locations all throughout the state, and I'll explain more about that later. But we started in Lewisburg, and that's where we've been for almost over 50 years.
And these are the osteopathic doctors that started the school.
It's an incredible story. You know, for over 100 years, there was the Greenbrier Military School in
I
Lewisburg.
remember that.
Yeah, it had a national reputation.
Yes.
And, you know, Bob Evans was a graduate of that school. Our governor, now our senator, Jim Justice, went to that school. Anyway, they closed their doors in 1972. And 4 visionary DOs, Dr. Apgar, Dr. Bales, Dr. Newell, and Dr. Wallington, along with a number of other members of the West Virginia Society of Osteopathic Medicine, bought the property. You know, people like Dr. Mascari down in southern West Virginia also was instrumental, and Dr. Roland Sharp was our first president. So they, against all odds, they bought the property from the family that owned the Greenbrier Military School, and they started the Osteopathic School in 1972. And the vision was there was a real need, and there continues to be a need to train and educate physicians to practice in rural areas of our state and throughout the country. And that's the reason why WVSOM was created.
It's very interesting, and I'm sure you know this, but then when it started, there was some criticism of starting a 3rd medical school in such a small state. And the medical societies and the schools were against it. Some people were. I have to admit, at the time, I didn't think it was necessary for such a small state. But you and your school have proved me to be wrong. So we'll go into it. How many osteopathic schools are there in the states, in the country?
Actually, it is a growing profession, though I do want to say one thing is that we were actually the 2nd medical school. A lot of people think we were the 3rd. We were actually the 2nd, and then Marshall Med School was created soon after our school. So there's a little bit confusion there.
Well, thank you for creating. I didn't know that.
Right. So the osteopathic medical profession has been in existence since the 1800s. And currently there are 42 accredited colleges throughout the country at 67 teaching sites. So they're throughout many, many states. In fact, they're in 36 states throughout the country. 1/4 of all medical students in the country are DO students. And it continues to grow as a profession. They're anticipating within 5 to 10 years, 1/3 of all medical students will be DOs.
They're saying in 3 to 5 years, we're going to be 40,000 fewer doctors available, and we're heading for a problem. Now, I have to say that when I was going to school, And one of my cousins is an osteopath in Oklahoma, and he's as old as I am, and he's still practicing. But in those days, in the 50s and the 60s, a lot of the osteopathic schools were in the South and Southwest, from my recollection. And he went to school there, but he did go to the Ohio optometric college or the hospital.
Osteopathic, right,
Yeah, for
right.
his residency.
Right, sure.
So anyways, it's out there, and you've proven a point. How many students do you have?
Every medical student has a number. Every medical school has a number, and our number is where we can accept 200 new students a year.
Each class? Well,
For each class.
Yeah.
So our total, we're over 800 students in the state. So we're the largest medical school in the state.
That's amazing, because when I went to school and got into West Virginia Medical College, I was 19. There were 44 seats available for the entire state. And now you're telling me we've got over 400 seats available, or positions in the state with all the colleges.
Yeah. WVSOM is about 200 plus students per year. WVU is about 115, 120, and Marshall is about 70, 75, I believe.
My class was 44.
My class, yeah.
Yeah. Are there very many female students?
Oh yeah, that's been a big change too in medical
Yes,
education.
big time.
In your days, there were very few women.
10% in my class.
Now it's about 50-50.
Are most of your students from West Virginia?
About a quarter of our students are from West Virginia. So out of a class of 200, we typically have about 50-some West Virginia students.
Do you, obviously you accept students from somewhere else. Do you accept foreign students or students from foreign medical schools?
No, we do not. We don't. All of our students are American citizens or they have permanent green cards.
Okay, we're from a relatively small state. I would assume tuition is an important factor choosing a school. Tell us about your tuition. Is there an in-state, an off-state, whatever?
Sure. Of course, we're a state-supported school, and so we have an in-state tuition rate and an out-of-state tuition rate. We are the lowest. We have the lowest tuition in the state, and so for our in-state students, we're at about 23,600 is our in-state tuition, and our out-of-state tuition is over 56,000.
That's for the whole year, though, not per semester.
It's for the whole year, and that includes tuition and fees. Doesn't include living expenses.
Oh, well, I understand that, yes. And how does that compare to the other two medical schools in West Virginia and medical and osteopathic schools throughout the country?
As I said, we're the lowest tuition in the state. Marshall is at 25,600, and WVU is at 34,000, just under 34,400. In terms of out-of-state, all of the medical schools in West Virginia accept out-of-state students. Like I said, our out-of-state tuition is around 57,000, just under 57,000. That's at the mean for DO schools around the country.
Well, your school is unique, or used to be unique. It's not unique anymore. But how does one document the value and the contributions to West Virginia and, with that many students, to other states around us?
Well, sure. So the West Virginia Higher Education Policy Commission produces a report each year, an annual report, documenting the production of physicians and other healthcare providers in the state. It's the Health Science Report and Rural Health Report, And so in that report, they document how many physicians are being produced. And I'm proud to say that WVSOM leads in over the three categories that they measure for med schools is overall production we lead, and then we lead in the production of primary care physicians, and we lead in the production of physicians who choose to practice in rural areas of the state. So we lead in all three categories.
Define primary care, because our audience thinks of primary care as just your family doctor.
Right.
But that includes some specialties.
Sure. Primary care is a collection of specialties that include family medicine, pediatrics, general internal medicine. Sometimes it includes general internal medicine, OBGYN, and in some definitions, psychiatry or general surgery.
Is there a reason that more of the osteopathic students don't go into other specialties, or a higher number?
Well, our school is focused on rural primary care because that's what the need for West Virginia is. But that
point.
being said,
Yeah.
and we're a leader in terms of number of students who choose primary care, but it's 60%. So 40-some% of our students go into non-primary care specialties like surgery or ophthalmology, like your profession, and other non-primary care specialties.
Tell us about the osteopathic manipulative medicine.
Sure. Well, osteopathic medicine is a hands-on type of medicine, or it has that component to it. And you have to look at the origin of the profession. So basically, osteopathic medicine is an American tradition of medicine. It was created by a single person. His name was A.T. Still. He was an MD. He grew up actually in the Wytheville, Virginia area and settled in Kirksville, Missouri. And I think the thing that really changed his life was here was a man who was both an MD, he also was a minister. And 3 of his children die of bacterial meningitis.
Wow.
Can you imagine how angry that man was? And so what does he do? He takes that tragedy in his life and he creates a new form of medicine, and he does it by using his hands. He recognizes that your hands can actually detect disease in a person, and then he learned different ways of alleviating mainly pain conditions by doing manipulations. And what it does is it helps improve blood flow, it helps improve nerve conduction so that the patient gets better.
Well, not only that, it's the hands-on. I don't know if you've had any examinations recently, but exams today are much different than exams I used to do. Just getting through the telephone to a doctor's office is amazing anymore.
Sure. Right.
It is something else. Now, do many of the osteopathic doctors in this day and age still do manipulations?
It turns out that all DO students are trained in osteopathic manipulative
Over 200
treatment.
hours of training.
Right. Yeah, it's called OMT. Though many of them don't incorporate it into their practice, and there are a lot of reasons why they don't do it. There's time, reimbursement issues. But there's no question that it is a very powerful form of medicine. And in fact, our school is a leader in terms of producing physicians who use these techniques in their practice.
But Tom, I can see where to do manipulative procedures in the office and schedule appointments would be difficult to do. It's time consuming. Now, obviously, the osteopath can determine more muscular and physical problems than the average doctor might. So do they refer to chiropractors for some of these manipulative procedures?
A lot of times they'll refer to a colleague, a DO that does OMT is usually the first referral. Though what's really interesting is that at the same time that Dr. Still was creating osteopathic medicine, a man by the name of Palmer was creating chiropractic medicine. So the point is that these physical medicine techniques aren't the exclusive domain of DOs. There are other healthcare professions that use physical medicine techniques to help alleviate pain and improve health in patients.
In the early days, though, that was the uniqueness of an osteopath, was it not?
It was, and it was the way they established themselves. But the big difference between DOs and chiropractors is DOs are fully licensed physicians, and they are recognized as fully licensed physicians in this country by the medical profession, by the legal profession, and by the insurance profession.
We got a good question for you then. What is the difference between a DO, Doctor of Osteopathy, and an MD, medical doctor?
Well, like I said, DOs it's an American tradition of medicine created by Dr. Still, and that continues to this day with 42 accredited colleges. And all medical students learn everything you need to know about diseases and how to treat those diseases. So DO students learn all of those things that an MD student would learn, but in addition, they learn these osteopathic manipulative techniques, but they also are taught a philosophy of medicine. And from the moment they walk in through the doors of our school, they're being taught how to look at a patient and how to recognize that a patient is made up of a mind, body, and spirit. So there is a holistic aspect to the philosophy of medicine. And then they use their hands to touch the patient, to examine the patient, and then to identify where disease is and to help the patient overcome that disease.
Are there osteopathic schools in other countries?
There are, but there are different osteopathic models out there. So in other countries, a DO may not be a fully licensed physician. They may just do the manipulations. So they're somewhat similar to chiropractors in this country.
Well, do most of your students, or a proportion of your students from a graduating class might stay in West Virginia?
Right, and like I said, the Higher Education Policy Commission in their report, and we've led in the state for over a decade in terms of producing primary care physicians who then choose to practice in rural areas. So for example, in the last report, for a 6-year cohort, we put back over 70 DOs throughout the state in rural areas. That's a remarkable number.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So with 200 students per class, and we're getting that many in West Virginia, that means the other students are going to other maybe rural areas that need them. So you're serving our state as well as our country.
Absolutely. Well, our students, this WVSOM is a leader in rural medicine, and we're in Appalachia and throughout the country, we're leading in terms of producing physicians who choose to practice in rural areas. That's why we were created by our founders, and here we are over 50 years later, and we're one of the leading producers of rural docs.
In West Virginia or in the country?
In both, West Virginia
both.
And in the Appalachian region and in the country.
That's amazing, because when this started out, you guys in your profession may have foreseen this, but the rest of us did not.
Well, there was a our founding DOs and the members of the West Virginia Society of Osteopathic Medicine recognized the huge need for physicians in rural areas, and they did something about it. And here we are 50 years later as the leader.
Is that why osteopathic medicine has been so successful in West Virginia?
I think it's the way we train our students. First of all, we're in Lewisburg, small little town.
Yes.
And then what we do is, even when we had a class size of 65, and I remember those days, and now we have 200 plus, we train our students all throughout the state. And so we have a statewide campus. So we have presence in Charleston, Huntington, Clarksburg.
See, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. We're all
you have,
over
you
the
have a
state.
branch here with CAMC.
Well, no, we work with part of our success is all of our collaborations. And so sure, we have a wonderful collaboration with CAMC Vandalia, but also WVU Medicine, with Marshall Health Network. We work with everybody, and that's the key to our success, is we collaborate with everyone so that we can train our students and get them to stay in West Virginia by going into residencies in West Virginia and then serve the people of this great state.
The residency is important. I can remember even when my first cousin in Oklahoma, who was an osteopath and started school when I started a long time ago, and I think the osteopaths do this still. When one of the students gets accepted in a residency for whatever it is, they check that place out.
They sure do.
And Dr. Here in town does that. They check them out and make sure that it's up to the standards they want for their students.
Sure, and
Do
so
they still do that?
So by exposing our students to the residency programs throughout the state, then
Yeah.
that's one of the ways that we keep our students in the state. If we want to grow more physicians in the state, we need to grow our residencies, and the hospitals systems are doing that, and WVSOM is involved in that.
Well, I also noticed, like with my physicians, they've graduated from your school. They may go to a residency for general medicine and everything somewhere else, like Ohio.
Sure.
And then they still come back to West Virginia.
They do. And a lot of the ones that come back have family here, or maybe they're an out-of-state student who has just fallen in love with this state.
This is important when you talk about the small town. I was born and raised in Montgomery, okay? I used to, when I was in high school and decided what I wanted to do, I used to make rounds with one of the hospital doctors, or a private practice doctor. And I also have always said that my exposure to the compassion and self-care and helping others in a small community prepared me for my medical profession.
Well, that has similarities to our model.
Yeah.
Because what we do is the first 2 years, they're on our Lewisburg campus. So we have 400 plus students in the Lewisburg area. But then, medical school is 4 years, and then the residency. So in the third and fourth year, we distribute our students throughout the state, like I said. We have physical presence. All you have to do is look at McCorkle Avenue across the street from Memorial, and you'll see the WVSOM building there
Yes,
that
that's
we
the old
lease.
Pepsi building, if I remember right.
That's correct, and we're proud. We're proud of. We've worked with CAMC, and we're established. In fact, the largest number of our students in the third and fourth year are here in the Charleston area.
So what's new at WVSOM?
Well, there's a lot going on. What I'm so excited about is the faculty, under the leadership of the dean, has created a new curriculum for our medical school, and it's focused on health. You know, it's interesting that so much of medicine is focused on disease and then, of course, treating that disease. But we need to pay more attention to health.
Prevention.
Prevention, but how to be healthy. And so we're teaching our students how to be healthy so that they can then teach their patients how to be healthy and be an example to patients of what health is. So that's one new thing that we're doing. We started our first graduate program. So we started.
What's that?
We started a master's program to help people who want to go to professionals to a professional school like a medical school. So we started. It's a 9-month master's, and it like I said, it's a degree program to teach them about health, but also to prepare them to go to medical school or dental school.
So that's sort of the path that you took. Is that with all your different degrees and going to different schools to get into these things? So that's interesting. Is West Virginia Medical School involved in that? Are you teaching them anything?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Are you teaching the other medical colleges how to do this, or stimulating a new interest in those schools?
Well, what we're doing is what we're trying to do is make a difference in helping West Virginians become healthier. That's the bottom line. Okay. One of the real challenges with health care in West Virginia is we have an unhealthy population. A lot of people are unhealthy, and we want to do something about that.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Because when I came to practice over 50 years ago, I realized the private patients were no different than the clinic patients. All they knew was the doctor said I had this and I take this. They did not understand their medicine. That's why this has been my hobby, so to speak, to educate our West Virginians. So quickly, what's next for your school?
What's next is we're in the process of planning and we're going to be building a new addition to our research facility. So one of the areas we've always focused on teaching our, education of our students, and education is the #1 priority. But now we're recognizing that we need to contribute more in the research arena. So we're growing our research enterprise, and we're also growing our programs for reaching out to our community to improve their health.
Well, President Nimitz, I want to thank you for being with us today, and I'd like to make some comments. WVSOM leads West Virginia's medical schools in primary care, rural practice, total physicians, and the lowest tuitions. So that's just amazing what you have been able to pull off. And this state and the surrounding states need to thank you for providing physicians for them. I am Dr. Richard C. Rashid, and thank you for watching our show, Vital Signs.